In this dialogue, we will be trying to explain the views held by Peter Singer and expressed in The More Examined Life, a documentary featuring several philosophers walking and talking as they explain their views. Peter Singer makes reference in his talk to an argument he made in a previous book, an argument that says that it would be ethical to save a drowning child, even if it was at loss of one's monetary or personal expense, in the fact that you would lose those shoes when wading in to save the child. He then says that it follows that because you wouldn't mind losing such monetary value as the shoes possess, that you should then not consider it ethically unreasonable to then give up the same monetary value to a charity that would save even more lives. However, he doesn't draw attention to the fact that the immediate moral responsibility of saving a drowning child is not the same as deferring your moral responsibility, as happens when you give to charity. Because moral responsibility is immediate upon you the moment you see a drowning child. Singer, however, might consider this irrelevant as a point, for the sheer reason that as a utilitarian himself, the consequences of any action must be considered, and the consequences of the action of giving to charity would be the net saving of lives and the net maximisation of pleasure. In the video, he makes a point about the culture of excess in which we live, where personal gratification takes precedence over the rights of others, animals included, not to have to suffer. He writes in his essay Utilitarianism and Vegetarianism that the ultimate precept of utilitarianism is the maximisation of pleasure and the minimising of suffering, but because animals in the majority are capable of feeling both, they are therefore morally significant entities. However, Western civilization and societal individualism discounts this view, a fact he finds irreconcilable with his own utilitarianism. He makes further defence of his vegetarianism further on in the video, where he mentions that during the 70s, he witnessed, probably indirectly, the oppression of the Bangladeshi people by the Pakistani army. You can infer from the way that he then mentions that after meeting a vegetarian and being unable to reconcile his utilitarianism with eating meat, that he is loosely making an analogous statement that the oppression of animals by humans, in that we farm them for meat, is of equal moral objection to that of the Bangladeshis by the Pakistanis. In light of objections such as these, we are going to try and further expound upon these and some other statements as a series of dialogues in the style of an examined life.
One of the main problems is free will, because Peter Singer mentions how there's a problem in what we should be spending our money on. He says how a guy might go into a suit shop and think, oh, I'm not harming anyone spending money on a suit. In my opinion, how is that a moral problem? You're using your hard-earned money to spend on a product which, in theory, pays the far-end producer, so that could be anyone, in any sort of situation. So everything is balanced. You could, in essence, give some of that money to charity, but would it be for pleasure, so you feel good about giving to charity, or is it being selfless? What do you think?
I agree. I think like what you're saying about buying to paying the high-end producer. I think when it comes to getting money, you should think more about yourself. And I was like, as students, we don't exactly have a lot of money to spend at university because we're on a set budget. So we wouldn't just get this money and start giving it to charity, would we? Because then we would effectively be damaging ourselves. We wouldn't have enough money to pay for food and stuff like that. So I believe as well that you should think about yourself, almost like set up yourself to be placed in the position to give to those less fortunate to you.
I do think we have a moral obligation to other people though, to help each other and help each other out. So
exactly.
We do in a sense, because we're all human beings in a way, like help your neighbour and all that.
Yeah. We shouldn't hinder ourselves too much, but I think maybe there should be a case of, well, do I really need this? As opposed to I want, do I need
balance?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it should be the rich giving to the poor, not like the middle class giving to the poor. Do you know what I mean? Because the middle class, although they're not poor, they don't have money just to throw about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Not as rich as the rich. Anyway.
Exactly. The rich are the same as the middle class, but just have a lot more money. So it should be them who said, I don't need to buy like a 55-inch TV. I can suffice with a 32. And just give the rest of the money.
The problem with that is though, is who can decide who gives money and who doesn't.
Exactly.
That's the problem. There's always a problem with that.
You need like a set budget.
Who has the right to tell someone what to do?
Yeah, exactly.
But the problem is, someone who's a millionaire, he may have 10 staff, 100 staff, or 1,000 staff, he's giving them jobs, which is feeding their family, educating them, clothing them. Isn't he already doing enough? If his wage bill's say £1 million a year from a company that's turning over 100 million, isn't that a lot to give? Plus he's paying 40% tax if he lives in the UK.
And a lot of these companies do give millions away to charities.
Whether it's a tax write-off or not.
Yeah.
Even like Bill Gates.
They did it before that was a tax write-off.
Yeah.
Like that, doesn't Bill Gates use his father?
Bill Gates is an absolute billionaire, one of the richest men in the world, and he's been given millions of dollars to charity.
Billions.
And he's still, do you know what I mean?
Massively rich.
Yeah, still massively rich.
And the question you could ask is, should he give more? Should he actually?
But he's aiming to give 30 or 40 billion away. They say he's worth 50 billion, but he's put 40 billion, I think, in his charity, and he's giving away about 10 billion of it now.
I know he doesn't want to give money to his children because he would rather give it to charity.
He's given them a couple $100 million each, but yeah.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, who cares? I'm not going to lose sleep over them.
Yeah. But he's put himself in a position where he can give massive amount of money to those less fortunate to him and still be in a position to himself of incredible wealth. So
it's long term. Why give, if you've got £10 now, wait till you can afford to give £10 a month when you've got a good job.
Get £30 and then give £10 of that away. That's why that's why again, like, don't be put in a position where you are going to be poor if you give money away. And give money away for the right reasons. Don't give money away because you feel like you just had to. In Catholic churches, when they're sitting down at the benches and people hand like money baskets around to them to give money to the poor. A lot of people do give money, but then those who don't are made to feel guilty because they haven't.
And they have a tithe as well, don't they?
And I think that's really unethical to do to people because you're putting them on a guilt trip just because you have no knowledge of their financial background, because all different classes come to church and yet you still give it to them. I know they're not doing it to be evil, obviously they're doing it because they're thinking about others, but...
Peer pressure.
Exactly.
So I think his example about the child in the pond is not really a very strong example, because surely most people would just say, take your shoes off.
Yeah, I think his ideas about it are good. You could save more children by giving your money to charity, but again that relates back to the point, you don't know where your money's going.
Is the charity credible?
Exactly, yeah.
Does it even exist?
You might not even know anything about this charity. Again, it's going back to the point that you might just want to give to this charity because you think it's the right thing to do. But I like, the analogy does have, it's quite balanced. It's got some good points, but some flaws as well.
Yeah.
But equally, how many analogies are lifelike? Not just his analogy.
There's going to be problems with all of them,
really. Yeah.
Okay, you can.
It's just an example.
You can criticise everything to an extent anyway.
It's just an extreme example. You would just take your shoes off.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of it. This is where we can make a link to Quam here, because both of them focus around the theme of choice. So everything's about choice that we do. But Quam focuses more on cultural relativism, and making a choice to learn. Every society is different, but his ideals were to get everyone into share ideals. But they both do focus on choice a lot. And you can see Quam and when he's talking about it. But I think his ideals were affected a lot by the ethnicity of his mother and father.
Yeah.
I think it could have been changed based on ethnicity. And Singer's whole choice is that he's saying people he is kind of saying a lot of people make the wrong choices. You know what I mean? But who's saying that? Peter Singer. But then I think the flaw in that is, you know how he's saying a lot of people are making the wrong choice. That's subjective because what someone might see as a wrong choice, another might see as a right choice. So there is a reason we have free will. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just saying.
He says, doesn't he say something along the lines of that? It shouldn't be subjective in itself. Then what he's actually saying is.
What he's saying is subjective. It's all based on his opinion of our choices. I think it's a little bit unfair that he criticises us for making the wrong choices. Where you can't go through life making the right choice every time because you're just human. Do you know what I mean? I think it's quite flawed, but again, it does have strengths. We have free will for a reason, and he can't judge. I don't think he's in a position to judge what is right and wrong.
Yeah, he seems to think that he's right, but then questions our decisions.
Doesn't everybody think they're right?
Yeah.
But that's all subjective, isn't it? Nothing.
Yeah.
He can't be objective in his thinking of our choices.
But who's to say it's wrong? Because in your private life, just because someone smokes, drinks, takes drugs, drives fast cars, how do you know in their private life they're not doing charity work, missionary work, giving money away? They're just not talking about it. It's not obvious, but they do good quietly.
Yeah, like you know the $1,000 suit. Say there's a man who bought that suit.
Yeah.
He's making the assumption that that $1,000 man, that $1,000 suit man, doesn't get to chat in his spare time. How does he know that?
Yeah, true.
He doesn't. So he's just making a silly assumption.
The silly man.